Let's read the question together. A student investigated the temperature change in a displacement reaction between metals and copper 2 sulfate solution. So what's the examiner told us in this rubric, this introduction to the question? We're looking at an investigation and we're looking at how the temperature changes and we're looking at a displacement reaction and it's happening between different metals and copper 2 sulfate solution. Now it's really important that we have the two here because this shows us the charge on the copper ion in the compound copper sulfate. Now copper is a transition metal and that means it can form more than one stable ion. So you can have copper 1 sulfate and copper 2 sulfate and they're totally different chemicals and that's why the number 2 is so important. Let's look at part A. Define the term displacement reaction. So what's the command word? The command word is define. That means say what something means. And what we are explaining the meaning of is displacement reaction. Now this is a 2-mark question, so we're kind of looking for 2 parts with the definition. Now a displacement reaction in its whole definition is when a more reactive element takes the place of a less reactive element from its compound. But we can be more precise with this definition because we know it's about a metal and a metal solution. So the definition in terms of this question is when a more reactive metal takes the place or displaces a less reactive metal from a solution of a metal salt. Now, we get 1 mark for saying that a more reactive metal displaces, so 1 mark for that, and the second mark is from a less reactive metal in a solution of its metal salt. Part B, state the independent variable. So what is the command word? The command word is state, that means say simply. And we've been told we're after the independent variable. That's the thing that you choose to change in your experiment. Now going back to the introduction or the rubric, we can see that we are changing the metal that is reacting with the copper sulfate solution. Therefore, the independent variable is the type of metal. Now we can also actually scan further down in the question and we can see we've got a results table for this experiment. Now the first column of a results table is always the independent variable, so that's almost like a little bit of a check there to check you got it right. Part C, suggest the piece of equipment that would be used to measure the dependent variable. So what's the command word? The command word is suggest. That means give an idea. What other piece of information have we been given? We want to have a piece of equipment and we're using it to measure the dependent variable, so it's a measuring piece of equipment. Going back to the rubric, remember the dependent variable is the thing that you measure and record during your investigation. So what are we measuring and recording in the investigation? It's the temperature change. So to measure a change in temperature, we need to measure the temperature. And what piece of equipment we use to do that is, of course, a thermometer. Now, table 1 shows the results of the experiment. Remember, the first column is the independent variable and the second column is the dependent variable. Please notice that we have the variables listed at the top and the units, if there are any, are also in the title of the column. They are not after each value in the table. Part D. The temperature increase depends on the reactivity of the metal. Write the metals, copper, magnesium and zinc in order of reactivity. Use the table above. So, what are the command words? There's 2 here actually. One of them is write and the other one is use. And what other information have they given us, the examiner here? They've told us that the temperature increase depends on the reactivity of the metal. And indeed, the more reactive the metal, the greater the temperature increase you will observe. And we're going to be considering only three metals here, which are given to us in the question: copper, magnesium and zinc. And if you notice where we're going to put our answers, we're starting with the most reactive, going to the least reactive, so make sure that we get them in the right order. So let's have a little look. We can see that the biggest temperature rise is magnesium. So the most reactive metal is magnesium. And you can see here, I've put the formula for magnesium, the symbol that you would find on the periodic table. You don't have to do this. I'm just doing this as shorthand. And if you're not sure of the symbol, check the periodic table or just write the whole word. That's absolutely fine. The next highest temperature change is zinc. So therefore the next metal is zinc. And I'm going to actually just write the word zinc, and that's fine. It doesn't matter that I've mixed up the symbols and the words, I will still get the mark. And the least reactive from this table is copper. And indeed, it didn't react at all because there was no temperature change.